When Doom the Dark Ages was first revealed, I was skeptical. The whole stand and fight combat philosophy sounded badass in theory, but I needed to see how they would actually pull it off. Sure, the trailers looked decent, a bit slow maybe, but they had my attention. The last two games tried to pass the Slayer as this unstoppable godlike force that hell fears, but in practice, that godlike power didn't always come through, especially in Eternal. Eternal doubled down on that fast, evasive movement, dashing, weaving, and playing keep away. Which, yeah, makes for slick, high skill gameplay, but creates this weird disconnect. Lore wise, the Slayer could not backpedal from an imp, he'd walk through it. The guy was supposedly crafted in the image of God and blessed with divine power. You'd think he would be immune to simple fireballs. Still, I get it, it's a gameplay choice, and I love both games to death. But now we have the Dark Ages, and it does something different. It slows things down, but somehow amplifies the power fantasy. So, did it work? Yes. Yes, it did. This is hands down the most powerful version of the Slayer we've ever played as. Not lore wise, of course, since this is a prequel, and I'm not here to argue power levels. I'm talking about gameplay. It's slow, it's heavy, and a complete 180 from Eternal speed demon pacing, and it feels great. Hello everyone, I'm Septicus, and today we're going to break down Doom the Dark Ages. Piece by piece, segment by segment, just like we always do here on the channel. And lastly, I want to give a spoiler warning, because I will be spoiling the whole story of Doom the Dark Ages, so if you haven't played the game yet, I suggest you play the game first, and come back when you're done. Now, let's get into it, starting with the presentation. Now, I'll admit, the presentation had me worried. From the trailers, it looked like they took the Eternal was too colorful criticism way too literally and just drained the palette completely. Argentinier straight up looks like Hellgate London, and if you remember that game, congrats, we're both ancient. But then, the game flips the script fast, you're thrown into hell almost immediately, and it looks awesome. It's grim, brutal, and from there it's only got better. The game takes you on this epic journey across different planes of existence, and at one point you visit a dimension called the Cosmic Realm. Holy shit, it's breathtaking. Straight up Lovecraftian madness. Tentacles, swirling skies, impossible geometry, all of it. Visually, it's my favorite part in the whole game. Overall, the presentation is great, and by the end of it all, I liked the aesthetic of the Dark Ages more than I did Eternals. But unfortunately, there's a few things we need to talk about, and they don't have to do with the presentation as much as they have to do with the technical side of things. Doom Eternal was basically black magic. It ran like a dream on almost anything. The Dark Ages runs like shit in comparison. Right out of the gate, we've got forced ray tracing.
You're a fucking disappointment.
It sucks, big time. Frame rates tank unless you crank up FSR or DLSS, and even then, it feels like you're patching over bad optimization instead of solving the problem. Which leads me into my main complaint. id Software used to be the gold standard for performance, and seeing them jump on the just upscale it bandwagon stings real bad. Big levels and fast load times are great, but not when they come with this kind of hit to smooth gameplay. And then we have the bugs. Nothing game breaking, but still not what I expect from a Doom launch. In Chapter 2, during my first playthrough, this door right here refused to open, and I wasted about 15 minutes trying to progress until I gave up and just restarted my checkpoint. In Chapter 14, during the first Komodo fight, I got stuck in this wall right here, and in Chapter 17, the game just didn't spawn enough enemies so I could take down the shields of this elite right here. Each one forced a checkpoint reload, which usually fixed it, but still kinda rough. On a slightly positive note, across two full playthroughs, I did not get a single cross. However, you expect $80, I expect a game without bugs. It's not unplayable, but it's not pristine. Let's not linger in the technical trenches too long, though. Next up, the story. Our story begins in Northern Dunur, smack in the middle of a Hellish invasion. In the early chapters, the Slayer is dropped onto various battlefields completing missions to help the Sentinels push back the forces of Hell. Once he's done, the Makers just zap him back into Limbo until his next job. Simple as that. They mostly serve as tutorial missions, so I'm kind of skipping the first few missions for the sake of pacing. The Sentinels also possess an ancient relic called the Heart of Argent, and surprise, we don't want it falling into demon hands. The mere presence of the Slayer is enough to make demons panic, rushing their attacks just to avoid him, because Lord Azrak, big demon bossman, cannot fully control Hell while the demons still fear the Slayer more than they fear him. Honestly, not a bad premise, and it's not groundbreaking, but the fact that it's a nod to the only thing they fear is you from Eternal is almost adorable. I dig it. Then, in one battle, Commander Thira, who literally is the Heart of Argent, gets abducted, a giant tentacle snatches the tower she's in and drags it into another dimension. Naturally, the Slayer tries to follow her, but the portal slams shut in his face. So, what's our genius plan to get to this other dimension? Wake up Cthulhu. That's the actual plan. Played totally fucking straight, by the way. Anyway, cue another dragon riding sequence, and the Great Old One wakes up, but his chains are still intact. Naturally, it's up to the Slayer to break them. The Slayer finally acquires the ballistic force, the big fucking crossbow. An apt name, it's a delete everything in that direction kind of weapon. Perfect for unchaining ancient space gods. After more combat and a tense staring contest with a beast later, Cthulhu is free. The Old One opens up a portal and bolts through it, and the Slayer grabs onto it for dear life. Let me rephrase. The Slayer rides Cthulhu into another dimension. This shit writes itself. Absolute cinema. With that, we arrive in the Cosmic Realm, which immediately carries the whole game on its back, hands down the best part visually, mechanically, and atmospherically. And I will come here to say, chapters 15 to 18 are peak cosmic horror. Flesh walls, teeth corridors, alien-like architecture straining over a bottomless void. And of course, these things. These floating horrors are native to the realm and, according to the Codex, can grow large enough to devour planets. Dead Space deep dive, wing wing. And we get to fight their little cousins. A great twist on the classic demon's design. Can't say the same about the new Baron though. Ew. Ew. Oh my god. Ew. Fuck off. Anyway, the Slayer fights his way closer to Thira, enduring brutal encounters and death-defying jumps until he reaches a mysterious portal. And on the other side, holy shit! Out of nowhere, we're plunged into deep ocean, pitch black, with no escape in sight. I don't think I have thalassophobia, but I definitely have Subnautica PTSD, and this shit hit really hard. You can even see me pause the game in raw panic. I had a mini panic attack, I have to be real. It's also surreal feeling helpless as the Doom Slayer. Nothing really happens in this part, like you just follow the marker and eventually the Slayer gets eaten and we spend a whole level inside of the Great Old One's guts. Thankfully, this Cthulhu gets a bad case of Taco Bell and finally we reach Thira. Things go south fast, Azrak shows up, grabs a massive power-up and then pieces out. We'll see him later. The Slayer gets imprisoned and then fucking dies, and I didn't think they would lean into this meme, but they did, and here we are. Still, killer scene, and I love when games aren't afraid to beat their protagonist to hell and back. In horror, it builds empathy. In action games, it earns you a power-up. And in Doom the Dark Ages, it gets you a very pissed off Slayer. So pissed off, in fact, that he wakes up in the afterlife, kills everything, hijacks the Ship of Souls, sails his way back to the land of the living, and fucking resurrects himself. Resurrection seems a bit fuzzy though, it implies the Sentinel summoned him back using demon magic, but we just saw him fight his way out of his own. Even the Slayer's confused, mostly just pissed they used Hell's powers at all, but hey, He's back, gets his helmet, and it's time for the final fight. And with that, we roll into the last chapter. The Slayer destroys some siege towers and finally kills that piece of shit, Creedmaker. His boss fight's decent though. We've come a long way since Davoth, but honestly, fighting a brick wall was more fun than fighting Davoth. And because the game wasn't insane enough, how about a brawl with Cthulhu? Bish, bash, bosh. And finally, Azrak. He's doing well, even manages to wound the Slayer. Until he kills the Slayer's pet dragon. You'd think they'd get the memo the first time, but no. 30 years of ass whooping because of a fucking bunny, and they didn't learn a damn thing. Guess what happens after the Slayer sees his dragon die in front of him? After getting his ass handed to him, he somehow escapes, because we need one more chapter to round up this adventure, and we get the last chapter where we assault Hell itself. In that chapter, the Slayer brutalizes Azrak and his little bitch. Credit. The story is not revolutionary, but it does exactly what it needs to do. Give the Slayer cool shit to do. I gave this story segment the same attention I gave it while actually playing. Yeah, there's more lore, more codex entries, but I'm not that into it. Still, I totally get the appeal. If someone wants to do a full deep dive into the lore, more power to them. I'm sure there's a couple of killer video essays already. As the great John Carmack once said,
"Story in a video game is like story in a porn movie. It's expected to be there, but it's not that important."
That may have been true once, but these days games come packed with such elaborate stories, an entire fanbase sprouts around them. Just look at the From Software crowd. So I get why id Software leans into story more, I really do, but this one, it's not deep enough to inspire a cult following, and not dumb enough to be mocked. It's just a very okay story. Let's start with a newcomer, the Shield. The Shield fucks. I absolutely love the Shield. It's a defense tool, a movement tool, and a utility tool all rolled into one. It's what enables the go all-in style of combat, and when they said stand and fight, they meant it. The main use of the Shield is, of course, to block. You can parry anything that glows green, and you can also throw it to stun enemies and give yourself plenty of time to tear them apart. It took me a few chapters to get the hang of it, but once I did, I basically became immortal, even in my first blind playthrough on Nightmare. As you progress, you get shield runes that trigger different effects after a parry. They have varying levels of usefulness, but honestly you don't need to think about them too much. The shield is fucking awesome, and I'll definitely miss it when it's gone. Then we have the guns, or rather my main problem with the guns. If you've been paying attention, you might have noticed that I use the super shotgun almost exclusively. And you'd be right, because the game doesn't give you a reason to use much else. In Eternal, you constantly swapped weapons. 1, because you'd run out of ammo all the time, and 2, because it gave you a DPS boost if you knew what you were doing. In the Dark Ages, you simply don't run out of ammo. It's literally impossible. Your melee strike replaces the chainsaw as your go-to method of refueling. But here's the kicker. Parrying an attack gives you your melee strike back, and you are always parrying something. So, infinite ammo. At some point, I started swapping weapons out of boredom. Yeah, technically you have to swap to your energy weapon to break those energy shields, but that takes like 2 shots, then it's straight back to the super shotgun, so it doesn't really count. The weapon roster's decent. I was really hyped to see the Quake nailgun return, only to relegate it to Lost Soul duty, the poor thing. The chainsaw's cool. Turns out it's a very strong weapon as well. Shame I never had a reason to actually use it. Weapon swapping in general feels abysmally slow, which pushes the players away from swapping mid-combat where every second counts. But the biggest issue, you cannot block while swapping weapons. Not only does it feel clunky, but on higher difficulties, it's flat out deadly. Now, I get why they didn't include a quick swap system like Eternal, they didn't want it to turn into another quick swap circus, but still, it's awkward. If you're firing a gun and try to swap weapons, it has to finish the fire animation before it even starts swapping. And of course, no blocking during all of that. Look at how early I right click to block and how long it actually takes to happen. In a game where the combat looks like this, you just don't have enough time for clunky delays. Whether it's a deliberate design choice or an oversight, I cannot tell, but speaking of design choices, we have to talk about the dragon and the Atlan segments, starting with the dragon. From the trailers alone, I could already tell they were going to botch the dragon, and yeah, they kinda did. Now, the dragon segments aren't bad per se, they work fine, but my main issue is why so many of them? There's just too much dragon riding, and when he showed up again in chapter 14, I rolled my eyes back like I was the fucking Undertaker. What I want to say is that it overstays its welcome, and for how boring the segments are, I can't imagine why they leaned on them so much. At least the giant mechs, the Atlans, tried to keep me awake. There's a simple but clever risk versus reward mechanic in Atlan combat. The longer you punch an enemy, the more this meter builds up. Feel it, and you unleash a devastating attack. But if you get hit, the bar resets. It's easy to understand and gives the player a choice. Neat. They even added new elements in later battles. You get 2 different weapons throughout the campaign, and of course, the boxing match with Cthulhu, which was glorious to say the least. In general, I liked the Atlan segments way more than I did the Dragon ones. Overall, the gameplay has a lower skill floor and a lower skill ceiling than Eternal. Whether that's a good or a bad thing depends on what kind of player you are. Personally, I find the Dark Ages way easier to come back to. As a more casual player, it's just not as exhausting as a long session of Eternal is, especially on higher difficulties. The gameplay definitely grew on me, it took time, but it did, and now I genuinely love the Dark Ages for what it is. There's a lot of room for improvement, sure, but with patches and a story DLC already in the works, only time will tell. If you made it this far, seriously, thank you for watching. Putting this together took a lot of time and passion, and knowing someone stuck around till the end really means a lot. So if you like this kind of video, I guess maybe leave a like, or maybe even subscribe. There's more on the way. But until then, bye bye.